My fiancée cheated on me during my bachelor party, so I missed the wedding and left her alone to explain to the guests why the groom's family and the groom were absent. I'm 31 years old, and I had been engaged to Jelly, who is 30, for over a year. I met her and dated her for 4 years. Today was supposed to be our wedding, but here I am, miles away, ignoring her and messaging strangers to feel better. Last week, my friends organized a bachelor party for me. It was to a cabin in the countryside. Nothing wild, just a last celebration with my friends before getting married. On the day we were supposed to leave for the trip, I had a weird feeling, like something wasn't right, but I couldn't explain it. Jelly didn't plan a bachelorette party. Instead, she decided to work over the weekend to compensate for the wedding days off. I felt guilty for leaving her alone just a week before the wedding. I told her I didn't want to go. I wanted to spend time with her instead. She convinced me it would be a bad idea for my friends, who had gone to all the trouble to organize it. At that moment, it seemed like she was right. Now I know why she sent me away on the trip. It was fun, not a wild guy's party or anything like that. My friends rented a cabin by the lake, stocked the fridge with beer, and filled the living room with enough snacks to last a month. Yes, I have friends who eat like 10 people. I'm the first in the group to get married, so everyone was excited. We spent the first night drinking around a campfire, telling stories and joking around. It was everything a bachelor party should be, but I couldn't shake off the nagging guilt. She was home alone working while I was here partying. The next morning, I don't know if it was the hangover or intuition, but I couldn't take it anymore. Without telling anyone, I snuck away and drove back home. I wanted to get there early and make her dinner as a surprise, and maybe we could have a quiet night together before the chaos of wedding preparations. When I arrived, I saw a car parked in front of my house that wasn't hers. Her car was in the garage as if she hadn't left for work that day. She was supposedly supposed to be at work. What was she doing at home in the afternoon? I could sit there thinking up excuses for what was happening, or I could call her and ask. She answered with a cheerful voice, "Hi, love. How's everything?" My throat felt dry, and I asked, "Where are you?" Without hesitating, she replied, "At work." I just wanted to know how her day was going. Good, but with a lot of work. I need to finish a lot of things before the day's off. Before I could react, she hung up, saying she was in the middle of something important, and started bombarding me with messages filled with love, saying how much she missed me. I stayed in the car, numb. I didn't go through the front door. I couldn't. Something inside me, maybe instinct, told me not to. Instead, I walked around to the backyard where the bedroom window was. The curtains were closed, but the sounds coming from inside were clear. It was her whispering and laughing, and a man's voice joking and talking. I pulled out my phone and pressed record. I didn't know if this would be useful in the future or not. Standing there amidst the laughter, I heard her say, "I still can't believe I'm doing this here. It feels so good. I want another round." The guy laughed and whispered something, but I couldn't catch it. After a few minutes of silence, I heard her moans growing louder and louder until I couldn't take it anymore. Hearing those words shattered me. I wanted to burst in and catch them in the act, but I couldn't move. It was like my body was paralyzed. Instead, I slinked back to my car. I could have gone in and confronted her right then, but I didn't feel the need to. Why? I already knew the truth. I just wanted to disappear and never see her again. Going in and confronting that pair of infidels would just land me in jail, while they would go back to doing the same thing while I was locked up. I drove back to where my friends were. I said nothing, just drank until I passed out, anything to numb the stabbing pain in my chest. My friends dragged me to the pool, but the only thing I did was drown in my misery and drink. The hours passed in a blur until my closest friend, Sane, pulled me aside and asked what was going on. They knew I had left in the morning, but thought I went running or something. I told him everything, and he turned red with anger. He was as furious as I was. That's what good friends do. It was good to have someone react the same way I did. We talked for hours. I told him I didn't want to let her get away without facing the consequences. He threw out some crazy revenge ideas, and the best one I chose was simple. I didn't want to see her face or confront her. All I wanted was brutal revenge. After checking out of the resort, I stayed at Sane's house. I sent a message to Jelly saying I would be back home the next day. She took it casually and replied, "Oh, tomorrow I'm going to my parents' house and staying there until the wedding. I'll see you before I go." I hesitated before replying, saying, "Nah, let's save the excitement for the big day." She agreed without any suspicion. That night, Cian stopped by my house and saw that the same car was still there. She was still playing her shameless game, still with her lover even that night. The next afternoon, I went home. She was either at work or God knows where. The bedroom looked so clean that no one would suspect what had happened there the day before. At least they had the decency to leave it clean, but even if they had poured 10 liters of bleach over the place, I felt so disgusted that I didn't want to look at the bed. I slept on the couch in the following days until the wedding. I played my role perfectly, sending sweet messages, showing excitement for the wedding. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but inside, I was completely disconnected. On the wedding morning, she arrived with her entourage: bridesmaids, makeup artists, family, posting stories, and all kinds of things on social media. I told her I was going to pick up my grandmother from the airport and would arrive a little late. I stayed in touch with her until the last moment, playing my part. But instead of putting on my tuxedo, I packed my things, locked up the house, and drove to my grandmother's house in another state. I turned off my phone, and for the first time in days, I breathed before disappearing completely. I sent an email to my side of the guest list, my family, close friends, colleagues, telling them everything about the infidelity, the lies, and how I discovered it. I informed them the wedding was canceled and not to bother calling me or Jelly about it. I left out our mutual friends. I didn't want anyone warning her in case they decided to play double agent. My parents still called me because they were worried. I explained briefly without telling them my plan. Only my grandmother knew. I called her the night before, asking her not to travel for the wedding. Cian said he would go to the wedding, see what happened, and update me. He knows I'm with my grandmother. He called me a little while ago, but I don't think I'm ready to listen. I feel numb, suffocated. I don't want to talk to anyone. I have a lot to say, but I can't write anymore. I will do another update soon. Update 1. I talked to Cian. He told me everything in detail. The wedding day was a complete chaos. Everything seemed fine until the guests started asking about my family and the groom. She tried calling me over and over. When I didn't answer, she called my parents. No response. Then she called Cian, who was at the venue, and he pretended not to know anything. Her parents started bombarding her with questions. Where's the groom? Is this some kind of joke? Did something happen? Her bridesmaids tried to maintain composure, forcing smiles, but the tension in the atmosphere became evident. The guests grouped in small circles, speculating, murmuring, and creating all kinds of theories. One of them, invented by her godmother, was that I had run off with a female co-worker. Eventually, her father went on stage and tried to calm the situation down. "We are having a slight delay. Please be patient." His voice trembled, and he was pale because the wedding was a disaster, and there were no answers. It didn't help at all. The guests weren't stupid. They knew something was very wrong. Jelly and her friends realized none of my guests had attended, and everything seemed premeditated. They tried cornering Cian to get information, but Cian was tight-lipped and acted completely surprised. Finally, her parents and friends discreetly took her away from the place, and one of her bridesmaids announced that the wedding was postponed and everyone would be notified about the new date. But that wasn't the worst part. Not only was she dealing with the emotional disaster of having been humiliated in front of her family, friends, and a wedding hall full of people, but this hit her where it hurt most: her wallet. Jelly had lost a good job a few months before the wedding. After a long search, she found a poorly paid job that paid her by the project. She barely made enough to cover her expenses. I paid most of the bills at that point. I didn't care. We had planned everything together, and as I had the means, I offered to cover the wedding expenses without hesitation. I thought we were a team, and in marriage, it didn't matter who paid as long as we were in it together. That belief shattered the day I discovered her infidelity. The moment I ended our relationship, I wasn't going to let my money pay for a celebration built on lies. For the wedding, we had hired a planner who took care of everything: the venue, decoration, food. We had only paid 40% up front. The other 60% was still pending. In fact, the 40% was due 2 days before the wedding, but conveniently, I postponed it. When the event manager told me that I would have to settle, he informed me there would be an additional interest for the delay, approximately 30%. I said that was fine. We would pay whatever was necessary. I mentioned he should charge what he deemed fair, and it wasn't my problem. I knew I would disappear and she would have to deal with it. That's exactly how I planned it. When Jelly tried to sneak out of the hall to escape the guests' judgment, she was stopped by the event organizing team. The manager wasn't going to let her go without settling the debt. It was 60% of the total cost of the wedding, plus interest, and believe me, it was a huge amount. A tremendous blow for someone without a stable job and who had spent all her savings on the wedding dress, makeup, bridesmaids' outfits, and other details. The manager insisted it had to be settled immediately. She didn't have enough money to cover it at that moment. Her father had to intervene, but even for him, the amount was too high to pay all at once. Desperate, he pleaded for more time, as this had taken everyone by surprise. The wedding had been canceled, and they had no idea where I was, the one who should have paid. But the manager wasn't in the mood for excuses. He told her he didn't care what had happened or who was going to pay, but someone had to pay or leave some guarantee. After much begging, he let Jelly and her mother go, but forced her father to stay until a new contract was drafted. He had him sign it, assuming full responsibility for the payment. If the debt wasn't settled within the agreed time frame, they would take legal action. The humiliation of signing those papers in front of some people still at the venue, including Sign, was pretty hard. He was red with anger, cursing loudly. By then, Sign had already shown my email to most of the people who attended and were still there, and almost everyone knew the truth. However, Jelly's parents still believed I had just left her hanging for no reason, that I should have handled this privately and not turned my family into a laughingstock, speaking quite poorly. My father didn't stay silent. There's no one to blame but your daughter. She destroyed everything, not my son. She chose lust over loyalty. Instead of coming to give me lessons, you should teach your daughter to be faithful to her husband and not to sleep with anyone. He left because there was nothing to discuss with them at that moment. Later, I learned that Jelly went back home with her mother and friends, only to discover my side of the closet was empty. My things had disappeared. Everything was over. And just to make sure, I printed and posted photos of her lover's car parked in our driveway. I'm sure her parents and friends didn't take it well. I don't know exactly what happened between them after that, but some mutual friends ended up contacting us. It came through them that her own parents also turned their backs on her. She had to move out of the house. She couldn't pay the rent. Initially, her parents planned to take her in until she could get her life back on track, but when they learned of her infidelity, they withdrew their support. Her father, over the whole debt issue, was angrier than you can imagine. He demanded she pay back every last penny he had covered. Not only was she completely alone to face the consequences of her actions, but now she was financially ruined. At this point, she was couch surfing at a friend's house. I couldn't care less. I've moved in with Sign for now until I find my own place. I learned many things she told me through messages she sent, but I haven't replied to any and have blocked her. I can't say whether there have been new ones or not. They no longer reach my phone. On update 2, more than 4 months have passed since the wedding that never happened. She's been chasing me for closure, or at least that's what she said. Any contact we have in common, she tried everything. She called me from different numbers, tried to contact me through mutual friends, and even sent letters to my parents' house. Nothing worked. I didn't respond because I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I blocked her everywhere. I erased her from my life as if she had never existed. But she was relentless. Her last attempt came in the form of an email. The subject said, "One last meeting to close this. Please, please, please." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. It was long and desperate, filled with pleas, apologies, and a request to see me in person just once. She promised there would be no drama or manipulation, just a chance to explain and find some peace. I didn't feel bad for not responding. Once I deleted it, I felt she didn't deserve closure. She didn't deserve anything from me. However, once I was in a coffee shop enjoying my new life, she found me. I still don't know if it was coincidence or if she forced it, but it was like I moved through places far from my job. I didn't see her until she was standing next to my table, all because I was reading my phone. If not, maybe I would have had a chance to escape. At least I took satisfaction in seeing she looked bad. Really bad. Like I was about to marry that. I know it's not very nice to think that way, but it felt good that she was suffering. I wanted to get up from the table, but she said she wanted to talk, and she said it a bit too loud, so a few people started looking. I didn't want to make a scene there, so I stayed seated and told her I wanted her to tell me everything. No excuses, not trying to soften things. First, she spoke about trivial things, but according to her, it wasn't a real infidelity. She swore she had no emotional connection with that guy. It was just a one-time thing. She had never cheated on me before. She did it because she wanted one last night to explore her fantasies before committing to monogamy forever. She said she didn't want any bachelorette party. She just wanted this so she could get married completely guilt-free. The guy was an ex-coworker known for being good in bed. I heard he was experienced. There was a rumor at work that he slept with our boss and impressed her so much that she gave him a raise. Not only that, but he had also been pleasing some of the company's top female executives. Of course, these are just rumors, but I had my doubts. She texted him asking if all that was true. He hinted that it was, that he was very good at his side job, that he didn't do it for money but for pleasure without strings attached. And that was all she wanted. A night of purely physical pleasure, a transactional experience, nothing more. She swore she never intended to repeat it and had planned everything so it wouldn't hurt me. I sat there feeling disgusted, dirty. She was the one who did all this, which is considered pretty dirty. But I was the one feeling that way. I kept talking. I disconnected, thinking of everything I would have wanted her to do. She was saying something when I interrupted her and asked, "What did you ask him to do?" She froze. I repeated, "Tell me your fantasy. Tell me in detail. Did you give him prior instructions? Did you write it to him in a message? Show me." I didn't realize my voice was rising. She begged me to stop, saying, "I won't say it for God's sake." Then she started sobbing. After a minute of silence, she said she regretted everything the moment I called that day to check on her. She knew that call had ruined everything and that she should have stopped it, but she didn't. Henceforth, from what I heard and recorded, she didn't seem very repentant. Another lie came next. If you discovered it, you could have come in and ended everything right there. We hadn't done anything before the call, and I wouldn't have been unfaithful. But you chose the cowardly path of revenge. You played with me for a week just to humiliate me in front of everyone. My parents were humiliated and traumatized. You could have handled this privately. You should have been a man and confronted me instead of running away. Then came a complete 180 twist. Still, I can forgive you if you can forget what happened and start anew. We both made mistakes, but both mistakes cancel each other. I almost laughed at that. Seriously? She was willing to forgive me for what I did, saying we both made mistakes and should just leave it behind, move on, and maybe start anew. She whispered, "I still love you. I know you love me too, so it won't be hard to fix this." And then came the cherry on top. I'll offer to pay you back the 40% I spent on the wedding. I know you paid 40% up front, and my dad covered the rest. I'm going to pay him back as soon as I can. If that helps, I can pay you back your 40% too. She said it as if the money was the problem, as if that could erase everything. But getting the money back wouldn't be such a bad idea at that point. So a light bulb went off in my head. I said, "I can't promise you anything because so much has happened between us, but paying me back for the failed wedding could be a good starting point." I knew I wouldn't see that money any other way, but it would be a good refund after she ruined everything by resolving her doubts with another guy. We agreed that I would unblock her to coordinate the payment of that 40%. She said it would take a few weeks or a bit more than a month, but she could get some kind of loan to pay me back as soon as possible. I know it's not good to fool people, but fooling those who deceive you doesn't have 100 years of forgiveness either. Even so, I haven't committed to getting back with her just because she returns the money, so technically I wouldn't be lying. I'll probably return in a month when I know if Jelly has returned my money or not. Update 3. I won't deny that these last 2 months I've been a bit anxious because I didn't know if Jelly would finally pay or if she would realize everything. But she did. So this is a happy update for me. To those saying what I did was wrong and that I should have even paid the rest of the wedding, well, I can put you in touch with Jelly so you can be her doormat and wait for her to come back home after being unfaithful to kiss her. I'm sure they like that kind of thing. But finally, the day came to receive my payment, which I got through a transfer from Jelly to my account. Not a penny was missing. Even the fees were covered in the transaction. I knew this because she herself sent me a message telling me. I asked how she got the money. I didn't want to find myself involved in any bank robbery or something like that, and she told me she had applied for a loan. With that, she also managed to pay her father back. That loan has to be incredibly expensive because the bank surely lent her at the highest rates, but that's not my problem. My only problem now is deciding how to use that money in my life. Before I tell the next part, I want to mention that during this time, I received some of her messages trying to talk about our relationship. I responded with the bare minimum necessary to keep her thinking about returning the money, but not enough to give her false hope. Let's just say my responses were quite vague. Then came the message that I assumed she was waiting to send, and that I knew I would have to respond to sooner or later. In fact, I had my answer prepared. I only had to copy and paste it. She asked, "And now, what about us?" My response, one I still keep, was, "When you said I wasn't a man for not stopping what was happening, I think you were right, but only to a certain point. A man should fight for his woman, yes, but for one worth it. And in your case, wanting to roll around with a guy just because he had a reputation, you're not worth it. I think now you have a reputation too. I also believe a man should never get back with someone who disrespected him as you did, so yes, I'm being a man here, and that's precisely what you will never have." After that, I blocked her again. And yes, I know many guys don't care if their women cheat on them. They probably even applaud when they return home after being with another man. That's why they are now worried that I should have paid my share of the wedding for canceling it. Well, sorry to hurt your feelings, but I paid to marry a faithful wife, not a cheater. So this is my refund for a defective fiancé. And if you think forgiving and paying was the right thing in this situation, you can ask her father what he did with her after she returned the money. Yes, he didn't forgive her either. Nobody wants a cheater unless your self-esteem has moved to another planet.